Reviewed episode 95, My Academia. So better than last week, I think. At least from the comments from the straight up recap, pacing, and so on. Right? It's like the most important thing in any anime. The most important part of any anime. Right? No, but I think it's fair to say that immediately in the beginning of that episode, you do see a new scene, right? So I'll talk about too much here in this review, but of course in the last episode, I think it was very clear. That episode, I mean, even in the storyline and the Momo and Kendo was almost good, right? Like I said, that's a review. It was generally a good episode, right? The new stuff, but it had like ridiculous amount of recap and flashback and so on. This episode was better. So I just want to say first, it was better in that way, right? Disregarding the storyline or whatever, right? But it was just better at least from like a recap, filler, pacing episode. This had a recap before the opening, short, very short, and then I had a new scene, right? This scene here. So it didn't have this like recap opening, longer recap. Yeah, I didn't do a double recap way, and so on. So that was at least there was like I don't know, 2-3 minute, 4 minute less of recap. But last day was crazy. Last day was like half the episode of the recap, like 7 minutes, and it was crazy much recap over flashbacks. And I guess to point out here, I suppose. When I say flashback, I mean unnecessary flashback. I don't mean here's a revealing backstory we have seen before. I mean flashback as in less flashback, last tournament arc, that kind of like a filler flashback. Not an actual like here's Iida's sad backstory. I mean like an actual. Being said, it's like they still had a little bit of this story, right? Which I feel it's like, come on, do you have to do this thing? So it's a new scene, I suppose, though, from an other angle, right? When Endo is training to Horde as a kid. But they showed this flashback twice. They third draw thinking about it, and then like 3 minutes later, Papa is thinking about it. So I'm just like, why are we doing this twice for? So it still has that issue where I feel that this episode was better, as I said, than last week, but it definitely has that like filler recap flashback thing going on, right? Where it's like, why do I have the exact same flashback in the episode twice for? Like, you know what I mean? Even if it's a short, like half a minute flashback, that's still half a minute of 100% then filler, right? Because you don't need to show me the exact same flashback twice in the same episode. Just like neck to, like 2 minutes, maybe more, 5, but like, very briefly next to each other as well. So, it is what it is, right? Anyway, let's talk about the actual episode now. Yeah, so Iida, they are living, combustion engine people. No electric vehicle here, no Tesla. They are like old school engines. And it's like, well, you can improve your speed by removing your mufflers and doing this stuff. So it feels like it's in one way it's like the easiest quirk thing. I mean, certainly it's painful. I said, it's like physically painful to do this thing for him. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is certainly a way, right, to to very easily, arguably, power up your quirk. It's like your family has this combustion engine quirk, and we can all improve our quirk by doing this thing. Or you can fix your engine, you can do this thing, right, and that improves then your max speed, your acceleration or whatever, right, and so on, right. Basically, different engine stuff, right? Maybe your they're tracking your tiring and so on. Yeah, so it's like, they're engine people. It's but it really feels somewhat too easy, arguably, in my opinion, because he's like, oh, your grandpa invented this, right? And his bro is like, we all done this. Mom can do it too. Yeah, it's like it doesn't feel like a very unique hero thing. It is very much like you're talking about. It's very much in his brother and their grandpa and mommy and in their footsteps, where they always have the exact same quirk. They have the same kind of job, right? He's kind of following into his family's technique, right? In every sacred form. And I don't know. I mean, Iida is very, classic conservative Japanese, right? He's like following in his family's line of work. Has the same power. He's like, this is a family power up. So I don't know. It fits Iida definitely. It'd be like, well, I improved my powers by just doing what my mom did and my grandpa did. You know what I mean? And my brother did, and so my papa did. Like this improved. But I think it is mom probably. I think it is probably grandpa on the mother's side. I'm not sure, but I think the fact like because his brother was like, hey, Kazan. He's talking about grandpa's powers, right? So I'm guessing that he got powers from mom. I don't think they ever explained it in Iida, but that scene to me felt like Like yeah, like I suppose so, right? That the mom is also an engine, right? And then it's her father, right? So mother's father, which one thing I dislike that with English and otherwise Japanese is the one, honestly, because one thing to be a language guy here, language elitist, but one thing actually in Swedish, Swedish, we have morfar or farfar. So in Swedish, they don't have a name, they don't have a word for like grandpa. I mean, we have a word for grandpa, but I mean, it's not the same thing. They don't have like a generic. In Swedish, we don't have like a generic really name. We never use it for like your grandfather or your grandma. Instead, in Swedish, we have like mormor or farmor and so on. So you always know if it's like your mother's father or your father's father, right, and so on. So you always know on what lineage the grandpa is, right. And the same thing with uncle and so on, and aunt in Swedish. It's also like farbror. That means like brother, yeah, like on the father's side. So in Swedish and other similar languages, we actually have like a very defined language way to speak about relatives. So you always know if it's the mother's parents or then. Right? But here in this anime, in Macadamia, I would think it makes sense if mom is the one having the engine lineage, right? Rivalry has a scene too, of course. But I don't know. I felt this scene was kind of pointless, honestly. Honestly, it felt kind of pointless to me. It's a little bit, and Dower is like worried about Todoroki. He's like a worried daddy now or something like that. So I guess it gives somewhat context to him carrying him by the son, I suppose. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know. He's like he defeats a random speed guy that's like a weaker power than Iida, saves some random kids, and they're like, this scene felt kind of at random. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, here's like one page of Endower doing stuff or something. Yeah, it felt a little bit almost kind of fillery. And then they also added that flashback again, right? So it's like, yeah, here's like this thing happening, and then that's like resolved. I don't know. For me, again, I said during the next report, but the kid looks like Beak, right? The kid looks like Beak. So this name is Beak in like straight up, yeah, his name is Beak in X-Men, and his power is to be a guy with a beak. So I want to talk about it a little briefly here, because Beak, I said during the next part, Beak is a very interesting character thing, because his power in X-Men then is like useless. He's like a guy that has somewhat of a bird body, but he can't fly. So this kid can understand him, he's like a kid with like, oh, I got like a bird face, but like, it's not that the other characters has some powers, right? That has some kind of bird should fly, we had it earlier, right, with, the hawks and so on, yeah. But this guy seems like Beak, like, oh, my face is a beak, and that is like, what can I do? I don't know, I have a big face, right? Because, again, I think Beak is a very good character in X-Men, because of the mutant, right, more mutant, bird face, and then it's like, he joins the X-Men, because of course he's get bullied and so on, right? And humans hate him because he looks all ugly. But his powers are completely useless. Like, his powers are absolutely pointless, right? In an actual fight, right? So I think you could have more. I kind of want to see more of that. Deku started out with that, right? Deku started out with being, instead, having no quirk, right? And we haven't seen anyone, I feel, so much. Kirishima, Red Riot is probably, I think, the closest to that in his flashback. That his powers is kind of bad-ish, right? And he's a kid. But yeah, I guess Mirio. But the thing is that with Mirio is like, yes, his facing power is like, it wasn't that strong as a kid, right? When he could face. But knowing, again, with X-Men, Kitty Pryde, she has the same powers, right? So I'm just like, well, yeah, but I read X-Men, and Kitty Pryde's a pretty badass X-Men. She has like a really good power in X-Men. So when you see his facing, you're like, that can probably be really OP, though. Given that, it's the same powers, right, basically. So you're like, nah, I don't believe the powers are weak. But yeah, we don't have anyone. Shinso, I suppose, is this close thing now then. Not really, but I mean, he has the, the evil power instead. So that's, again, why I like Shinso, right? Because Shinso has that, he's the evil quirk power. But there's no one right now, I think, listen to the hero squad that has like a bad power, right? It's like, this power is useless, but you still have, maybe Navy Laser? Is he the closest one to that? Having a power that's like, it's kind of, oh, I hurt my stomach kind of thing, or is it like a fake belt thing? Yeah, maybe. But no one, I guess, otherwise is really having a power that is like kind of pointless, but they still manage to be a hero anyway. This power, I mean, maybe Sensei Nightai. His powers were like, he could like see in the future. Wasn't very good for fighting people, I suppose. He was more like he had like a very interesting fighting style. Bubble Girl, I suppose, it wasn't very powerful though, she was very hot though, but no, but I mean, something like this, the B character could be interesting character, I feel the anime needs more of this, like, he's a guy with like a really useless quirk, he still must be a hero somehow, right, even though he is like, you know, useless power-up kind of thing, but I guess that is kind of what Deku's going for in the beginning, then he gets the best power, so kind of goes away from that. That's, I guess, with Deku's sense, he goes away from that. But again, you know, looking at the B character, it reminds me, because I think B is a very well written character in X-Men, it reminds me of the same way I like Shinso, right? Because Shinso again then has this, instead of having obviously not a bad power, but has the evil power. So I like that concept more, I think, with the character has, because everyone, of course, in this anime, even Deku now has a power, right? And it's interesting, I think, to explore these powers that are kind of useless, right? Like, what can this power do actually, or because I think one idea that I like thinking about as a post or discussion, I suppose we have with friends and so on, right? When we're out drinking or whatever, right? Like I was 2 times a hangover. Is that I think that's a concept talking to people, first of all, is that you're like, wow, it would be awesome to live in macadamia where everyone has powers, where everyone has quirks, you know, or living like Houses of M in X-Men, everyone has power, everyone has mutants and so on. It would be amazing. But I think in reality, if everyone had powers, right, like in macadamia, most people probably look at this power. Where you're like, oh, you're like a bird guy, but you can't fly. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Like, you know what I mean? I think most people will end up with like, oh, you're like a bird guy. Oh yeah, what can you do? Oh, you can't fly at all. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? I think that would be an interesting, probably a conundrum, right? If you actually lived in this world. Most people probably be, not only wouldn't they be heroes like Macadamia and so on, talking about earlier, right, with the cops and so on, but no, there would be like really bad powers. It would be like, this power is only a disadvantage. It doesn't do anything, it just makes you look weird. It's like, yeah, great, that's awesome. Well, at least, I guess there's one huge issue though, difference, I suppose, in this anime and X-Men. And that, of course, is that this Beak guy, I'm just calling him Beak, yeah, this Beak guy, he's, probably not being bullied because he has a beak, right? Because there's like everyone has some weird powers, so he's like whatever, he fits into the macadamia world, right? Where of course in X-Men, being in our world, you know, but like lesser, you know, percentage or mutants, right? Like 10%, whatever. Of course, being like a beaky guy then is much worse, right? Because you look different than everyone else and so on. Yeah, so I suppose that's a big difference though. This kid probably doesn't get bullied for having a beak guy. His quirk is probably pointless, but he probably doesn't get bullied for having the actual appearance of a bird, right? So that's possibly. But yeah, and she's like, I'm the Horde Girl, and she speaks and it's like weird. We've seen her earlier, but she's like the first time to get some lines, and she speaks in this like English Japanese thing. Yeah, it's like a weird Japanese, and when she was angry, she was like speaking only in English. And then of course you also Flex guy is like, oh, I can speak English too. But I mean, I think she also looks like a dragon, Kobayashi dragon made, right? Yeah, with her eyes and the body and so on. But the powers are like controllable horns, very similar to the feather power, yeah, and having like controlling the feathers. Usually it's way worse in my opinion. Seems like a way weaker, like straight up seems like a much weaker version than the feather power, right? Because the feather power is like you have feather wings, so you can fly, you can like, you know, you can go to the sky, you can also control these feathers, and then you have a lot of feathers, but I guess you can have more horns, supposedly. But her power is like, I have X number of horns, right, I can control. It really seems like I use a straight up worse version than feathers, because even if she's like, I don't know, can have more than 4, 5, 6, 10 horns, right? I can have 20 horns when I'm a grown up. You can also have more feathers. You can have more bigger wings, right? So it doesn't seem to be that kind of limitation of growing up in your power scale doesn't really seem, you know, much better than just having the feather power and having like more feathers. So I don't know. Maybe she can make her horns bigger than it. But yeah, probably she should. But we saw her not flying, but she should be able to fly then. You know, using her own horns, right? I guess, because she can like boost her teammates. She can probably, you know, stand on her own horn, right? Kind of like Magneto and X-Men, kind of sit on the horn and fly by that. So she should be able to fly by using her own horns, definitely. I would say so, being able to like lift herself, right, with the horns. But it seems again like just a I think it straight up looks like a way worse version than having the feather control. It's like there seems to be no advantage having this power versus the mighty of the Hawk's feather thing. This is basically like 10 times better. Like this seems to have absolutely no other purpose because it works exactly the same. Her horns flies around and she can take up people and so on, right? Use what the feathers could do. But he has like 50 feathers. So she has like, or he has more, like 100 feathers, right? And she has like 4 horns. So it's like an incredibly weaker version. It's like 50 times weaker than his version. So it's like, and she can't fly unless he has to put the horn under her, right? So it's like, yeah, that's, and she can't really hit with them. So it's like super worse version than feather powers. Maybe there's some kind of growth to her, but I don't see it. I mean, I don't know, making the horns bigger maybe, yeah, like more horns. Maybe they can drill. It seems like, I don't know. Her power seems kind of bad, honestly. She's got a bad power. And, making things meld is kind of cute. It's like, I'm turning your ice into snow. In here, I'm thinking, I'm like, what is this episode here? What is that doing? I think the episode was better from a directional standpoint. It's better. It's less flashback and so on. But the actual fight in the storyline is weaker. I think the Iida brother thing is like, we've been there, Iida. There's no character development. It's just like, doing my Nishan thing again. So he hasn't changed at all. He's like conservative character protocol still. And there's less drama, right? Kendo and Momo was kind of like a girl rivalry thing. I'm the hottest girl rival model thing. And I was like, it doesn't feel like anyone actually cares about this fight at all. It really feels the lowest stake so far, right? And I said earlier that I felt that the Shinso fight has stakes on it. May really join the class, right? But after that, you really feel that the stake is going down. And this fight has even lesser stake. I feel it's like no drama or tension between the characters, right? So there's like, yeah, they're fighting, and does anyone care who wins? I don't, honestly. So I think that's a problem here. The episode is better directed, I think, than last week, but it's a really uninteresting matchup. Like from a drama perception, it's cool. It's cool learning their powers, though. They haven't seen the horn power before and so on, even in part of Peter but at the same time, it does feel to me like, wow, I really don't care who wins it at all. I like zero interest who wins this fight. I think that's a big problem here. That is like, I don't care, because I mean, there's like no drama, right? There's no relationship drama. No one matters if they win or not. There's no class upgrade. There's no scouts to pick them up to make them heroes, right? So it doesn't matter who wins in that sense. And then there's not even a rivalry. I mean, last week we just had like, here's the 2 model girls, they're gonna fight, right? Who's the, I got one on revenge, Momo Kendo thing. At least there was some tension there. Then you had, Shadow versus Shadow, right? So some kind of similar power scale. But now it's like, here's Horde Girl, she's like a nice Horde Girl, Melder guy, spinning guy, he can probably spin his, spinning guy, he can spin his stuff, yeah, that guy, and then it's like, they have like 0 issues with all the characters, which is good, because it makes sense that anyone would be enemies, but it's like, okay, they're gonna fight, and why should we care about that anymore? I mean, I feel generally, like, why do I care who wins or loses this fight? Like, do you guys do that? I don't think anyone does, right? So I think that's a problem in the storyline itself. Though. Like yeah, I don't really care at all in that sense. I mean, I like My Academia, but the episode does. I mean, I always does filler, but it has that kind of filler feel to it, because you feel like this doesn't matter. They're getting their powers, but I don't care who wins. It's like. But it's been like an episode where they talk about their powers and go on. Yeah, I don't know. But it's a weird feeling to it, because definitely I feel the stake is going down. By like episode 1, biggest stake, Shinso. And then it's like going down. I guess it's going to go up again when it's going to be Shinso versus Deku probably in the end, right? But right now we're in a downhill, I feel, because it's like, what's happening here in the bottom? It's like... but I see you today with, of course, Vivi. Man, Vivi and Nagatoro. Tokyo Revengers and Shadow House and One Piece and yeah, Saturday, all the anime. Let's see what's